Tillis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Werfel, I appreciate the time we spent in the office. I was one of 4 of the members of this committee that voted for your confirmation, along with 2 others off the committee, because I think you bring a private sector experience, deep knowledge of the IRS. If I were confronted, if I were back in my job at Price Waterhouse Consulting with enterprise transformation, and I was assigned a client that was struggling to meet current service level agreements, trying to get customer service right, trying to get the technical people you need to fulfill the primary mission of the organization. The first thing that I would tell my client is don't think about a big new system that expands your responsibilities before we fix the current plumbing, which I believe you're well qualified to do. Why shouldn't I look at all the calls for free filing as one of those at-risk projects for enterprise transformation when 70% of the taxpayers are already eligible for free file? If my data is correct, anybody making less than $73,000 a year with a public-private partnership that the IRS has today with tax filing entities, they already have it. So even if you felt like you need to get to 100%, why wouldn't you figure out how to plus up that relationship versus build your own and compete with the private sector that's already fulfilling the need?
Well, Senator, it's an excellent question. And, you know, as you were talking, I was thinking, yeah, you absolutely have to keep the lights on. We have to be there to answer the calls. Yeah. We also have to concurrently build incremental improvements.
Yeah. And I get it. And you're gonna answer that question in a way that's going to satisfy me. So I'm going to stipulate that you're going to give me a good answer because I want to move on. Yeah. So you're confirmed. Can you tell me whether or not you believe that the IRS has the authority, without new authorizing legislation and appropriations, to develop and implement a system for the service to prepare returns for taxpayers or allow them to directly file directly with the service using the government-run software? I know there's $15 million out there to study it, but
no, I've got this question earlier, and I think I committed to come back because the remit under the Inflation Reduction Act is for us to assess the feasibility. Most often we're doing that because
I suspect Congress you don't have, I hate cutting people off, but I want to stick to my time. I suspect that you don't have the appropriate authorizations and funding. And so now we're going to take our attention away from your core mission, which is to transform the IRS, and say, we also want you to focus on this other big project, which really doesn't have a lot to do with a lot of the KPIs you need to be working on now. So a last question related to this. Recognizing the well-documented leaks of taxpayer information and outdated computer technology, what's your assessment of the service's technical capabilities to develop a complicated program that would actually do that? Or do you view that as an implementation risk for all the other big rocks that you need to turn over now that you've been confirmed?
Well, I think I mentioned during my confirmation hearing, in many ways, it's got to begin and end with data security. It's fundamental. People have to know and trust that they're
and we have some credibility issues to deal with there.
There's mixed results. Like, I looked at it and I said, okay, tell us about our technology. Well, we successfully defend a billion cyber attacks a year. And we need to continue on that path because one successful attack.
So let's harden the base that we're already the data stewards of. Prove that we can do that on a sustained basis, and then decide whether or not we want to dramatically increase that base that would be subject to the same vulnerabilities. I know that your training experience in the private sector put you in a position to say, you're asking me to move things ahead of the implementation timeline that are standing in the critical path of the things that I need to get done quickly. And I think Congress needs to hear that, to understand that we don't do alla prima when it's technology, cybersecurity, everything else. If we don't focus on the primary goals so the taxpayers can be more satisfied, so that your customer satisfaction ratings can go up, then we're going to lose. The last thing, and I'll submit a question for the record, but also on the tax gap.
Yes.
The left is going to say it's all about finding a handful of billionaires and trillionaires. If there is one, there will be one soon. And the right is going to say all you're doing is hurting small businesses with the tax gap. But we don't have the information to even know that. I've asked a simple question. Let's stratify all of the people that contribute to the tax gap so that we have a distributional analysis of where we need to go after it. And I can't get an answer to that question. So why is it that I can't get an answer when somebody says that we've got $1 trillion tax gap, that I can't have, at least at the 30,000-foot level, what bucket they fit into? Because I think we're talking past the fundamental issue. If somebody owes tax, we could have a separate discussion about whether or not that tax should exist. But to the extent that it's in the tax code, then the taxpayers need to pay it, and then we can work on repealing it. But I really need more information at a more granular level than $1 trillion. Yep. So that I can start applying a rationality test to some of the statements that are coming out of these committee hearings and out of the mouths of my colleagues, because I don't think that they actually have the data upon which they can base some of these assertions. I'm gonna try and set up a meeting to come with you. Would you commit to me having a meeting in your office to go through your enterprise transformation plan?
Absolutely.
I look forward to it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
I thank my colleague, and just to give him a 30 seconds worth of history before you were on the committee. The reason that this tax gap issue was so relevant over the last year is because it wasn't some member of this committee, a Democrat or a Republican. It was Donald Trump's commissioner who held the post that Mr. Werfel did, Mr. Rettig. You know, Chuck Rettig, who had been a longtime auditor, he was the one who made the statement, A, that he thought it could be up to $1 trillion, and B, it was his opinion that it was overwhelmingly due to those who are extremely wealthy because of the argument, and I certainly have made it, that for somebody who is a trucker, for example, in Oregon or North Carolina, the government actually has the information in the vast majority of cases. That's
Mr. Chair, which is why I find it extraordinary that I can't get an answer to my question. If people have made that assumption, then hopefully someone who made that statement actually had accurate data upon which to base that statement, and we don't have it. So whether it's the Trump administration, the Biden administration, Obama, Bush, Clinton, that doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is I haven't seen anybody share that with me. So all we've got is $1 trillion number and a great political whipping boy. But I'm not here to do that. I'm here to solve the problem. Even if it is applying a tax code that I disagree with, if you owe it, pay it. But let's get more strategic about the way we go about dealing with the tax. If we want to solve the problem, if we want to keep it at the high level and use it as a talking point in committee, that's great. But if we want to solve the problem, we have to have data to drive our priorities. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And I would only say my colleague is absolutely right in saying that it's smart to get more detail. And as you and I talked about, an example of a detail is our Credit Suisse investigation, where Credit Suisse got busted a decade ago, and our investigators found they're doing exactly the same thing. So we have hard information on it. So as you seek to get more detail on it, put me down and happy to work with you. Okay, Senator Barrasso.